Initially, the plan was to review every single episode of Loki, and if you take a walk through my channel, you will find the reviews for the first two episodes. But the fascinating thing about planning, especially in my case, is that it never works out. Does that stop me from planning? Nope. I always sit down with my pen and my paper and jot shit down and then watch it fail gloriously. However, yet another fascinating thing is that I always find a way to do what I was planning to do, which in this case is reviewing Loki, albeit in a different way. Why am I being so self congratulatory and narcissistic? Must be because I watched the season finale of Loki and then rewatched the whole season right after that. Maybe I am enchanted? I mean, can you blame me? Have you seen the Lokis? Okay, enough small talk, let's get down to business. So here's what I'm going to talk about today. Firstly, I'm going to give my brief overall thoughts on the show. Secondly, and most importantly, I'm going to talk about the themes of religion, atheism, theism, creationism, determinism, etc. that I think Loki tackles. Full disclaimer, I am no expert in either of those topics. As an atheist myself, I love it when mainstream IPs delve into such topics in interesting ways, thereby making me want to talk about it. So, yes, please feel free to educate me in the comments. And thirdly, and not so importantly, I'm gonna give my theories on that ending. Yes, I know your favorite YouTube channels have already given their theories and backed them up with stuff from the comics. I know. It's not gonna be that kind of ending explained. Maybe it's gonna be a bit traditional, maybe it's gonna be a bit non traditional. Who knows? We'll see. But before that, three things. A spoiler alert is in effect. Watch the show, then watch the video. And if you don't care about spoilers, keep watching. Sit through the credits. Loki is a splendid and mammoth piece of entertaining art, and clearly a lot of work has gone into it. So, give the people who have taken you on this roller coaster ride for 6 weeks straight some appreciation simply by sitting through the credits. Once you're done with that, or while you're doing that, hit me up with a like, share, and subscribe. It won't hurt your mouse button. Please do it. Okay? I'm starting this whole review slash analysis hoping that you have done the needful. Okay? Okay. There's no doubt about the fact that I really love this show. I think this is my favorite, followed by WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. WandaVision was good, but it kind of went for an meh ending. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was meh overall, but Loki felt like a good enough follow up to the events of Endgame. Yes, it's big in terms of scale and scope, and no, everything after Endgame doesn't have to be so. It just has to stick to the core of its character, and that character has to be in the hands of someone who knows them and wants to tell that character's story as truthfully as possible. Clearly, that phenomenon has happened in Loki. Every piece of prop, every musical note, every thread on the costumes, every edit, every VFX shot, every single set, every single camera choice feels confident. Like it has been thought through until there wasn't anything to think about, and then it was thought through some more. In terms of writing, I'm a little mixed, especially because of the Lamentis episode. Yes, I know it holds a special place in everyone's hearts because it confirmed that the Lokis are bisexual. But come on, for a franchise that started in 2008 and after seeing the strides that LGBTQ related storytelling has taken, you think that is impressive? Come on. And even if I look away from that and at the other aspects that episode could have done to truly look into who Loki is, that's surface level as well. Because there the writing is focused on quips and jokes and undercutting some of the most poignant moments with more quips and jokes. So yeah, that kind of bummed me out. However, kudos to the showrunners for sticking to Loki's whole thing about failing by not giving him what kids nowadays call a W at the end. I think that kind of tips the scales towards me liking the writing. And possibly, so does. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has never really talked a lot about religion, if we include Netflix's Daredevil, of course. Yeah, the jury is still out on whether Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock is a part of the MCU. If it gets included, feel free to not watch this video because that show explores religion and Christianity, to be specific, in an insanely detailed way. But until then, I'm going to say that this is the closest Marvel has come to explicitly talking about what religion is all about. I can't exactly blame them because we all know how people get when their belief system is questioned. So, limiting its existence in this widely popular franchise to throwaway lines, exclamations, and jokes like Peter Quill responding to Doctor Strange's question about what master he serves with, "What am I supposed to say? Jesus?" is smart. The first Thor movie could have been a great way to talk about religion, but these mythical creatures that people worship in Norway are compared to aliens. They just come from another planet and their science is so high level that it looks like magic. It's actually in the Avengers that the MCU kind of dipped its toe into the topic, with Captain America saying that he knows only one God and he doesn't dress like that, thereby hinting that he believes in Jesus and Christianity. Or with Loki going on about his glorious purpose, ordering people to kneel, and reprimanding Hulk by saying that he is a god. Later on, he goes on a journey where all these notions are chucked over to the side until he meets Thanos, to whom he says that he can never be a god. But why? Why does he say that? What makes a god a god? And that's what episode 1 of Loki is essentially all about. I was against the idea of taking Loki on this entire journey and then making a whole show around the 2012 version of him. But now it makes sense because that version of Loki was the most obsessed with being a god. So, of course, straight off the bat, he's posed with the question whether he is an organic creature and possesses a soul. Two things that aren't usually associated with gods. He's deglorified and turned into a prisoner whose life depends on whether he has a ticket. When asked how he pleads, Loki says, "Madam, a god doesn't plead." Renslayer constantly reminds him that the timekeepers are the gods here who dictate the proper flow of time, not Loki. And as soon as the word dictate is brought onto the table, the show begins to hint that whoever gets to decide the fate of other species is a god. That's when we are introduced to Mobius, who is a true believer in a church of all places. Well, not actually, it's shown he has his doubts, but he chooses not to let them come to the surface. It's actually Renslayer who behaves like a religious fanatic, refusing to diverge from the dogma and all that. More on that later. For now, Mobius. With the introduction of Mobius, two philosophies are talked about very heavily: creationism and determinism. Creationism is defined as the belief that the universe and living organisms originate from specific acts of divine creation, as in the biblical account, rather than by natural processes such as evolution. And determinism is defined as a doctrine that all events, including human action, are ultimately determined by causes regarded as external to the will. Some philosophers have taken determinism to imply that individual human beings have no free will and cannot be held morally responsible for their actions. Mobius believes that the timekeepers have created him and everyone in the TVA and they write everyone's fates, thereby negating even the idea of a free will. Hence, they are gods. Loki disagrees with it. But then he says, the first and most oppressive lie ever uttered is the song of freedom. For nearly every living thing, choice breeds shame and uncertainty and regret. There's a fork in every road, yet the wrong path is always taken. So he's talking in the same language that the timekeepers and the TVA does until his free will is taken from him. Which is why he says this while describing his true nature: a cruel, elaborate trick conjured by the weak to inspire fear. And in doing so, he not only defines what the TVA is doing in the name of the timekeepers, but also what religious factions do in real life in order to have an iron grip on society. So what does it mean to be a god? Being influential enough to have a cult-like following who will do whatever you dictate them to do to maintain your idea of harmony. Side note, there are a bunch of religious allegories, I'm sure. Here are the ones that I noticed. The people are escaping in an ark to save themselves from an apocalypse. The Lokis are referred to the devils multiple times. The time loop situation and the place protected by Alioth feel very purgatorial in nature. And Kang is seen eating an apple, the fruit of knowledge. Episode 2 onwards, it was kind of hilarious to see Loki rebuking Mobius' unwavering belief that He has been created by the timekeepers, and there's nothing like free will because it's being written by the timekeepers. Well, he doesn't stop there. He scoffs at the religious dictatorial propaganda of the TVA. He tries to rationalize his existence, which is a religion on earth, but he's met with Mobius's theory that if you try to rationalize everything, then everything will seem absurd. He basically says that existence is chaos, nothing makes sense, so people make sense of it with religion or something religious like the timekeepers in this case. I suppose that's kind of agnostic because an agnostic person at least thinks about why religion exists instead of just blindly believing in it. But yeah, like an atheist, Loki thinks all that is bullshit. That said, by turning Loki into an atheist and showing things from his perspective, we actually get to see how something religion like, that is the dogma of the timekeepers, and religious organizations like the TVA that follow such a dogma without questioning anything actually functions. Just a reminder before going any further, I am a non-believer in anything godlike, so it is pretty much why I am seeing things like this. It is my reading of Loki's perspective. If you think that that's alright, that's cool. If you think that's wrong, that's cool too. Okay, back to Loki and his atheistic perspective. The most noticeable thing is brainwashing. When Loki did it in the Avengers, he seemed very okay with it because it was for his glorious purpose. But when the TVA does it for their glorious purpose, the first thing that he tries to do is teach them free will. Sylvie, also a Loki, grants people free will by unbrainwashing them with the help of memories. Now, in comparison to that, Renslayer, a representative of this religious organization, taking in Sylvie at a very young age and then not even remembering what her Nexus event / reason for straight up abducting her was. And that looks heinous. And it reminds us how absolute power can lead to a total dissociation from humanity. In fact, during the first viewing, Gugu Mbatha Raw's pitch felt very off and unlike everything else in the show. It's during the second viewing that I realized that she's channeling every religious fanatic in the world. She questions why Mobius is asking so many questions and blames it on his proximity to the Lokis. Heck, she doesn't even call the Lokis by their names. She just calls them variants, which is just demeaning and vaguely casteist in nature, which is something that stems from religious practices. And finally, when the timekeepers are revealed to be nothing but androids, it's shown how far people without a sense of identity can be fooled via religion. The show offers an olive branch for believers through Mobius, Renslayer, and Hunter B-15's trajectories though. After knowing the truth about the timekeepers, the purgatorial place where everything that's pruned is sent, and that creationism isn't a thing, both Mobius and Hunter B-15 try to preach the truth to the TVA despite devoting their lives to it. Whereas Renslayer kinda goes in the opposite direction, probably in an attempt to reinvigorate her faith despite knowing everything about everything. So yeah, Loki shows that you can be either of them. It's your choice. Or is it? Also, side note, you know how there are so many Lokis and not so many, other human beings or characters. There's that frog version of Thor, but yeah, that's it. Which means, for better or for worse, Lokis tend to promote free will instead of adhering to the status quo and just going about their life. I think there's an important lesson to be learned there, especially since I am living in a country where we are constantly being told to do what the government wants us to do and never voice our opinions. With creationism out of the picture, only one religious perspective remains, and that is determinism. And after listening and re-listening to the conversation between Kang, Loki and Sylvie, I think they conclude that time is God and that it, whatever it is, determines fate. And somebody has to limit that to a singular timeline or else a multiversal war will break out and all of existence will come to an end. Right? I know there are a lot of comparisons to season 5 of Rick and Morty going around. I haven't watched it yet, so I can't make those comparisons. But that bit actually had a lot of parallels with my favorite show of all time, Baron Beodar and Jan Jeffries' Dark. Spoiler alert for that as well, in case you haven't watched it. Why haven't you watched it? Go watch it! Okay, in Dark, time is treated like a god. The Sigmundus are kinda like the TVA, ensuring that time flows in the direction that it needs to flow so that their existence isn't jeopardized. And for that, they're ready to do anything, literally anything. Even there, it is said that there's nothing like free will. There's only this set path, and you have to live it in cycles. In the final cycle, it has to be reset so that the things go back to the first cycle and the protectors of time continue to exist. But things don't go their way in the final cycle, and the protagonist, Jonas, realizes that he and some other people are cosmic mistakes, and they have to be taken out of the equation to stop this sick ritual. And to do that, they have to stop the event/experiment that led to the creation of this time loop. Now, if I apply parts of that to the show, Loki, to make sense of it, the show says that the sacred timeline is the result of a scientific experiment by a scientist from the 31st century, much like H.G. Tannhaus and his experiment in Dark. Therefore, the godliness of time isn't some holier than thou shit. It is just a necessity for the sake of existence. Yes, it can be manipulated, just like Kang did in order to bring the Lokis to him, but if its branches aren't clipped, shit will hit the fan. However, since so many souls exist in the universe, explaining this concept will be too hard. And more importantly, it will probably make them think that they can take up the job of maintaining time. Hence the holier than thou facade, hence the TVA to keep up the facade, hence the brainwashing of variants to fill up the TVA so that they can keep keeping up the facade. That obviously comes with the dilemma of dilemmas. Do you take up the mantle of maintaining time, acting like a benevolent god? Or do you free time and bring in someone who won't be such a benevolent god? Loki wants to be this benevolent god and maintain this illusion of free will, partially because that staves off the emergence of the not so benevolent god, partially because it would ensure Sylvie's existence, and partially maybe because it would give him a throne. Yeah, he says he doesn't want a throne, but come on, it's Loki. Sylvie, on the other hand, wants free will, no matter how good or bad it is, because she believes that free will is free will. No conditions apply type of situation. Kinda reminded me of Steve and Tony's ideological battle in Civil War. But yes, we all know what they go for and what it results in. However, the question is, what does it mean? What is the show saying by having its characters choose absolute chaos and free will over ruling all of eternity via a dictatorial religious organization? In my opinion, and in my opinion only, I think that gods, no matter what shape or form they take, and their religious followers are always going to be dictatorial and inhumane. If you're cool with that, you kinda suck. Absolute freedom is going to be chaotic and it is going to be messy. But it is going to be freedom. Now, of course, since we see this discourse play out through the perspective of villains who are known for talking in absolutes, it seems like there isn't a third option. What's that, you ask? A democratic organization which doesn't go about pruning shit just because it is branching away from the sacred timeline, but respects its existence because it is populated by actual living beings, flesh and blood and whatnot. Something like the Illuminati, which in the comics was made after the Kree-Skrull War and was headed by Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, Namor, Black Bolt, Professor Xavier, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. Yeah, the MCU's version of it doesn't have to be such a boys' club, but you get the gist. Democracy. That is what could have been the third option, and I bet that's where Marvel Phase 4 is heading towards. I think it will be better if I go from character to character, ranging from least important to most important. Or is that gonna hurt some feelings? Okay, forget that I said least important and most important. I'm just going from one character to another. Also, please remember that this is just all a bunch of assumptions. So please feel free to call this section Ending Assumptions or Ending Explained via Assumptions. 1. Is C20 really dead? I don't think so. Either she is in the TVA or she has been pruned, which means she is in that place with the other Lokis. Where's Renslayer going? The short answer is that she's going to search for free will. But if the showrunners follow her comic book history, she's gonna become Kang's girlfriend and assist him in his ascension. Because before her departure, we see Kang sending her some kind of message via Miss Minutes. Why does Hunter B-15 and Mobius not remember Loki? Because that's not the Hunter B-15 and Mobius we have been following. They are alternative versions as indicated by their not so disheveled looks. Whereas Loki, in an alternative timeline where Kang didn't put up the facade of the Timekeepers, And he is probably there because Sylvie didn't know how to use Kang's tempad. What's gonna happen to Sylvie? I have a feeling she's gonna stay at that mansion, tame Elath, probably bring in the rest of the Lokis to her crib, and enjoy all the free will in the multiverse until Kang shows up to reclaim his place. How's Kang dead and he's there again as a statue in the TVA? It's an alternate version of him. He said that himself. Weren't you listening? Yeah, Kang said that if he dies, another version of him is going to come from the multiverse and take his place. That's why he says, see you soon. What does this mean for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I mean, if you look at the titles of the upcoming projects, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, What If, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania, it's pretty clear all of them are going to deal with the repercussions of this event in Loki. By that I mean they're going to deal with the existence of the multiverse and its pros and cons. I don't know how much Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and the Eternals will tackle this, but I won't be surprised if they do. Yeah, I think Loki is pretty awesome. The character has gone through such a different and frankly speaking mind-blowing churning in this one season, and it kind of makes his whole cinematic journey look pale in comparison. Yes, he's sad and lonely just like he was destined to be, but he has such a different kind of purpose now, while also having that little bit of ambiguity that in the off chance he does win, what is he actually gonna do? Tom Hiddleston is one of the OG MCU actors, and while the rest who had joined him are on the way out, my man here looks like he's in it for the long run, and I'm all for it. I think everyone in the cast and crew has done a splendid job this season. I mean, making me rewatch a show right after watching it and urging me to do this whole video is no mean feat. So, a round of applause for them. And I will be here eagerly waiting for Loki season 2. And those are my overall thoughts on Loki. What did you think of the show? What did you think of my analysis of it? Let me know in the comments. Please like and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as always, please stay healthy and stay safe.